The budget is not just a collection of numbers, but an expression of our values and aspirations. By far, the most critical aspiration of Nigeria today is the diversification of an economy that has almost entirely depended on royalties from oil for over 5 decades. With the crash of the value of oil in the international market and the consequent economic hardship confronting the country, Nigeria has been rudely awakened from our oil-induced slumber. The current scramble for economic diversification is an attempt to steer the country away from the devastating consequences of over-dependence on oil. Since 2012, when the Agricultural Transformation Agenda was introduced, till its consolidation into what is today called the Green Alternative, it has been obvious that government has recognized agriculture as the main plank of its economic diversification bid. Despite this realization, implementation of the Agricultural Development Program has been poor, mainly due to inadequate funding. Since 2012, allocation to agriculture has never been up to 2% of total annual budget, despite the fact that Nigeria is a signatory to the 2003 Maputo Declaration, which recommends 10%. As Nigerians await the passage of the 2017 Appropriation Bill, Farmers Market looks at the allocation to agriculture as well as the implementation of the 2016 budget for the sector. Farmers Market promotes Nigeria's agricultural prowess, celebrates successes, identifies the challenges besetting the sector, and advocates policies and programs that will help grow Nigeria's agro-economy. Varieties of highly nutritious rice in Abakaliki, Ofada, Kano, yet Nigeria wastes billions on rice importation. Cocoa in the southwest, and yet top dollar is spent on imported chocolate and beverages. Fruits rot in Benue, Nasarawa, Kogi, yet imported juice line the shops. 82 million hectares of rich arable land, yet no jobs, and food insecurity threatens.
Our real wealth is in farming, livestock, hatcheries, fisheries, horticulture, and forestry.
It's time to act different. Time to bring Nigerian farmers to the market. Farmers Market, growing Nigeria's agro-economy. Showing every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. on AIT. The 2016 appropriation tagged Budget of Change was passed into law in May, and it was the first full-year budget of the President Muhammadu Buhari government. The budget was prepared against the background of a slowdown in global economic growth and a massive crash of the prices of crude oil. The budget was made public after President Buhari signed it into law in May. Even though the budget came late, it contained many programs to improve agriculture in the country. These include deadlines for achieving self-sufficiency in local production of maize, soya, poultry, and livestock.
We intend to, out of the surplus from agriculture, revitalize and expand agro-allied processing, intensify local production and processing of cassava, of cocoa, of cashew, of fruits, of sesame seeds, and so on. This is the area that we see, potential area to increase employment opportunities for our youth, revitalize our processing, and so that we have our youth gainfully employed. In order to do this in agriculture, we need to have land available for that purpose. So we intend to utilize 5,000 hectares of irrigable land in the 12 River Basin Development Authorities. and utilize 22 dams for commercial farming activities by prospective investors. Because for many crops, right now we only have one season because of the lack of irrigation. With irrigation, we could do 2 harvests in a year.
The 2016 appropriation for agriculture was 75.80 billion naira, or 1.5% of total budget. Capital was 46.17 billion, while 29.63 billion was earmarked for recurrent expenditure. Agricultural projects captured in the budget details include the construction and rehabilitation of rural roads, support for 187,500 farmers across the country, extension services, development of strategic grazing reserves, price stabilization and buyback, as well as price guarantee scheme. Other budgetary provisions that will impact directly on agriculture include the following water projects: construction of the Hadeja Valley Irrigation Project, supply and installation of pressurized center pivot irrigation system nationwide, rehabilitation of Adani Irrigation Project, African Development Bank assisted rural water supply and sanitation initiatives, construction of embankment for Jare Earth Dam, Kashambila Dam, Adada Dam, Ile-Ife Dam, and Galma Dam, construction of 200 solar motorized boreholes nationwide. The 2016 appropriation for agriculture was a marked improvement on the 2015 budget, in which the sector had to make do with a total of 39.1 billion naira, of which 32.2 billion was personnel and overhead costs. Only 6.9 billion naira was earmarked for capital projects. However, the prevailing low prices of oil and the consequent shortfalls in projected revenues, as well as a serious disruption in crude oil production, combined to hamper the implementation of the budget. The proposed 2017 budget of 7.30 trillion naira, tagged Budget of Recovery and Growth, is higher than the 6.08 trillion naira appropriated in 2016 by about 19.95%. Allocation to agriculture is also an improvement on the 2016 appropriation. At 92 billion naira, it is 1.6% of total budget and 0.42% higher than the 2016 figure.
Agriculture remains at the heart of our efforts to diversify the economy, and the proposed allocation to the sector this year is at a historic high of 92 billion naira. This sum will complement the existing effort by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Central Bank of Nigeria to boost agricultural productivity through increased intervention funding at single-digit interest rate under the Anchor Borrowers Program, Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme, and the Nigerian Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for Agricultural Lending. Accordingly, our agricultural policy will focus on the integrated development of the agricultural sector by facilitating access to inputs, providing market access, providing equipment and storage, as well as supporting the development of commodity exchanges.
The details of allocation to the various departments, agencies, and programs are not available yet, but a peek by Farmers Market into the 2017 budget for agriculture shows that 61.7% of it will be expended by the headquarters of the Ministry of Agriculture, while the remaining 39.3% is allocated to its agencies for programs and key projects, some of which are rural roads, as well as water and sanitation projects, agricultural mechanization and equipment, food commodity reserves, land and climate change management, rice value chain development, wheat value chain development, cocoa value chain development, sorghum and millet value chain development, fisheries and aquaculture, as well as veterinary services and pest control.
If you take it from the point of view of the commitment of this country, the Committee of African Nations, where we are signatory to the Charter, African Union Charter on agriculture and food production. We have agreed to commit our annual budget to nothing less than 10%. And this was way back in the year 2003. And to date, we have not been able to get even half of that percentage allocated to agriculture. When this administration came on board, with the commitment expressed by Mr. President and the practical steps we've seen him take, we had reason to believe that we should be working towards attaining that percentage. But we are not yet there. And my take is that every other sector you take, the number one sector in governance is preservation of life, then property. And you can't preserve life if you don't have enough food to feed the populace, enough nutritious food to feed the population. If you don't have enough of it, then there's no way you can check sufficiently other incursions from problem areas. You have unrest, you have problem of health, all right? And so the number one sector for attention is feeding. Of course, security has got its own very, very unique, peculiar, significance. But the number one thing is feeding. Part of the problem of security is the lack of sufficient, adequate feeding on the populace. Because as they always say, a hungry man is an angry man.
Given the fact that we have gotten to about 5.7% allocation in this country before to agriculture, and that we are back to this now, honestly, to a large extent, I'm not satisfied. Because my take is simple. The policy thrust of Mr. President is very clear. For last year, it is very obvious Mr. President has brought to the front runner the issue of economic diversification. And if you talk about diversifying the economy, the area where we have not just the comparative advantage, but also the competitive advantage is agriculture. Because a greater part of this country, almost every town and village is agrarian. And so if the larger percentage of our people are involved in agriculture, I think, and you want to diversify the economy, you want to also, change the statistics with respect to unemployment. You want to reduce poverty. Then I think your best bet is agriculture.
Many Nigerians share this view with the lawmakers, but it may be difficult for the National Assembly to make any substantial changes to the figures while considering the budget.
If you start talking of raising the provision, the next thing is you be alleged that you are padding the budget. Okay, but ordinarily, it is the duty of the executive to bring proposals, budget proposals, to the Parliament, the National Assembly. The primary responsibility for passing the budget into law, making the provisions in the wisdom of the National Assembly, rests with it. But somehow our democracy has not developed enough for us to be able to do this, unfortunately. So we've had occasions when you want to increase you feel that it's inadequate from what you hear from your constituencies, and then you have a quantum of maybe complaints or demands, that make for, or that give you pressure rather, to ensure that there is increase in what has been provided in the proposal. I have experienced ministers coming to the National Assembly and begging us not to increase it.
Why?
I don't know. If we increase it and they're aware of the increase, maybe the presidency will now maybe accuse them of sabotaging the budget or whatever. But I have witnessed this as a senator.
A major challenge of agriculture in Nigeria is the absence of inputs such as fertilizers, seeds, and farming equipment. In April 2012, the Growth Enhancement Support Scheme (GES) was introduced as a component of the agricultural transformation agenda to make inputs, especially fertilizers and seeds, easily accessible and affordable for local farmers at the right time and in the right quality. The scheme was necessitated by the need to eliminate the mindless corruption that had attended the implementation of government's input subsidy programs for decades. For instance, until 2011, over 60% of government's agricultural spending went into fertilizer procurement and distribution. It was a system in which government procured fertilizers and seeds and distributed directly to farmers. But only 11% of Nigeria's 14 million farmers benefited from the program. The system failed to deliver fertilizers to genuine farmers. Instead, rich and powerful political farmers hijacked the subsidized fertilizers. Sand was mixed with fertilizers and sold to government. Payments were made for fertilizers not supplied, and already subsidized fertilizers were sold back to government, with a lot more taking across the borders to be sold in neighboring countries. In the words of former Minister of Agriculture, Akinwumi Adesina, government was not subsidizing farmers. Instead, it was subsidizing corruption. As if this was not enough, a large portion of the seeds sold to government was grain bought on the open market and corruptly passed as certified seeds. The consequence of these was that farming yield was poor. Nigeria had to depend on food imports, and the cost was huge. The Growth Enhancement Support Scheme was to provide subsidized inputs to farmers, to reach farmers directly with seeds and fertilizers through an electronic wallet system which allows farmers to receive subsidized electronic vouchers for their seeds and fertilizers on their mobile phones.
Throughout my agricultural sergeant, over 30 years, I've been at all levels of agriculture. The concept of GES has not only provided a solution to input supply to the farmer, but it has galvanized and of course brought out the best out of the professionals in agriculture in Nigeria. What I mean here is years back we don't have this facility, but because of the system we saw, the GS program was designed, was tailored to provide service to the farmer, at the same time support professionals from the research level up to the seed companies. There are so many seed companies now. What we have now is, like I said, we took advantage of the program, and this is what we established, and we are now serving farmers without government intervention. You see? So that is the thing. Provide a program that will mature, at the same time graduate from government to become private entrepreneurship. That is the GS, and that is what we have done.
The scheme was not without challenges. Bad road networks hampering the timely delivery of inputs to farmers, poor GSM services, and the inability of the uneducated rural farmers to use mobile phones were some of them. Despite these challenges, the system was largely effective. At inception in 2012, government figures show that 1.5 million smallholder farmers got their subsidized seeds and fertilizers using their mobile phones. This figure increased to over 3.5 million farmers in 2013, with over 10 million farmers captured in the registers of the Ministry of Agriculture. The GES scheme allowed the farmers to pay 50% of the cost of the fertilizers and seeds to retailers, who now sold directly to them instead of receiving the inputs through the government. The impact of this, according to the last administration, was an estimated increase of 8.1 million metric tons in domestic food supply. From 2012, when the GES started, to 2014, the program worked effectively with little or no complaints from the farmers and the retailers. The system was still in place in 2015, but being an election year, its funding, like those of all other development programs, fell to the bottom rung of government's priorities. And that's where it has remained till today. The result of this is that there is an acute shortage of fertilizer, and when available, it is priced out of the reach of local farmers who need it. A bag of fertilizer which cost the farmers not more than 2,700 naira in the past now goes for over 7,000 naira with no GES support and no subsidy. There's also government's ban of the importation of urea, a major ingredient in the local production of fertilizer. This contributed to the scarcity of the soil nutrient. The restriction is a fallout of the current fight against insurgency, and it is to prevent terrorists from easily accessing urea for the purpose of making improvised explosive devices.
The Nigerian government, instead of looking at the solution from different angles, they are looking at it from security angle only. And that security angle says urea is used as explosive, so don't sell it. It took time before the government understand that there's no way farming can be done without urea. Now, that has been resolved, but still, you hardly get permission to bring in urea.
Local companies licensed to produce fertilizers could have filled the gap, but their production capacity falls way below the country's fertilizer needs. This is a problem which the Nigerian government sought to resolve when it signed a bilateral agreement with Morocco for the production of fertilizer in December 2016. Even before the agreement takes effect, there are indications that it may be running into hitches already.
When this king, Morocco came visiting, there was some understanding established bilateral. They were going to bring in fertilizer and what have you. In fact, one of, I wouldn't call names because we are still investigating this issue. One guy, one company, maybe we can associate of it, captured immediately. They started this, piam. They took away the shipping completely. Even you hardly completed signing the dotted lines, cornered, the shipping. All right, and then they cornered, there are some things there are some requirements, components, raw material that are going to come because the manufacturers or the blenders complain. And the government, shifted for the shipping. Let us get some components for production of fertilizer, chemicals and what have you, that we don't have, or we don't have enough to be brought into the country so that there can be a sharing of this to the blenders in accordance with what fertilizer they are going to blend for us. Again, some 2, 3, 4 blenders went and cornered that in the name of the association, and that has raised a lot of hell. Now we have this. We are working on this fact. We are now investigating the information that they brought to us, and if they be correct, these people, the minimum they should be prosecuted for being greedy, want to corner government policy, sabotage.
Farmers Market will be looking out for the result of that, as well as more details of the 2017 budget for agriculture in the weeks ahead. That's Farmers Market for this week. Farmers Market is a focus on agriculture as a veritable alternative to oil in Nigeria's quest for economic development. We invite you to be a part of this paradigm shift. Let's harness our agricultural potentials across the country. Let's celebrate our successes. Let's bring the Nigerian farmers to the market and develop our agro-economy once again. To join the conversation, just go to our website www.farmersmarketng.com. Click on Farmers Network. Choose the topic, make your contributions brief, and they will feature next week on Farmers Market. You can see this program again whenever you want to. Just visit our website www.farmersmarketng.com. For feedback and sponsorship considerations, please contact us on 009 566 0090. Email us on info@farmersmarketng.com. Follow us on Twitter @farmersmarketng and like our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/farmersmarketng. Farmers Market returns same time, same station next week. Thanks for watching.